name's Ruben Murray, I'm a filmmaker. I've made films about lots of different things, but in about 2006, I'm going to just try and work out how to do this. 2006, I was in the W.H. Smith in Terminal 3. I picked up a book completely by accident called The End of the Line. And it was a book by this journalist called Charles Clover. I read the book and it completely changed my life, because I made a film about it. It took me 3 years to make a film about it, but it told the story of how humans have been behaving towards the world's oceans. I've been passionate about the oceans for a long time, but I never realised it was that bad. But crucially, what Clover did, and what we then subsequently did in the film, was tell the story that there is hope. That if the oceans are managed properly, then life bounces back. And in the places where people have been managing it properly, life bounces back. The film really hinges around two key scientific papers that came out. One of them, actually by the same person, Boris Worm. One was that 90% of the large fish have disappeared since 1950, which was, incredibly shocking. The fact that, and a lot of that happened in the 1970s. So even before I became passionate about the oceans, a lot of the large fish had already been taken out, already gone, and that all seafood will run out by 2050. I'll talk a little bit about how this has been amended later on in my talk. But the key thing was that our message was one of hope. Because hope and positivity, the fact you can turn it around, is the motivator. And this has kind of been what we've been very lucky, actually. The film ended up having quite a lot of impact. We showed it to lots of people before it got released. Julian Metcalf, who runs PEAS2 and Pret a Manger, watched the film, changed its sourcing policy, and lots of people have really taken on board the message of the film and have actually changed. We've affected government policy, we've affected the way commercial institutions see seafood, and we've also changed the way quite a few people, quite a few members of the public, think about fish. Really, there's only one tool that we need to solve the problems of the ocean, and it is the human brain. And it's not simply about being smart, although that helps. For me, it's about modelling. Not that kind of modelling. I mean, the creating of mental pictures, of mental maps, mental scenarios that we can then build in the real world. Now, this is how we create things. We build them first in our brains, as Gaudi is doing here, and then we create them in reality. This is Henry Moore building maquettes, which he then builds a larger example of as a sculpture. But when it comes to the oceans, most people have problems modelling what the oceans are, what they contain, their size and how they should be looked after. And this is borne out by the fact that there is a complete lack of global governance, laws of the seas, management structures, policing. People have this idea that the moment you leave a port in a boat, you can make up the rules as you go along. It's your boat, you're the captain of the boat, you go off and you do what you like, and you cook the books and write the numbers that you want to write in your sheet and come back, and it doesn't really matter. So we collectively have this, we forget ourselves the moment we leave port, and we are not able to create those sort of mental structures across the ocean. And this is, I think, a big problem, because if we want to create healthy fisheries and sustainable fisheries and legal fisheries, we have to first create them in our brains first, and then we build them. And detailed modelling gives you the environment or the operating space to be smart in. When we were making the film, we started to think about the oceans in a different way. We found out that there's this monstrous fishing net that you can fit 13 747s in as it goes along catching fish. Now, people didn't know this. People said, "Oh, they're a big fishing expert." How big? And this is monstrous, obviously. But if a net like this is managed properly, if the management structure is in place to make sure that this net only goes out on certain days and all that sort of stuff, then it's not bad in of itself. We also try to work out how many times, if you added up all the long lines, these huge great lines that fishing boats put out with 1,000 hooks, if you worked out, how many long lines are set every year, but how many times would it take all the long lines that are set every year to circumnavigate the globe? And we estimate it was 550 times. All the long lines set every year would circumnavigate the globe 550 times. This is Ray Hilborn, Dr. Ray Hilborn, and he is an overfishing skeptic. And this is my point really. I asked him a question. I said, Ray, what would you dream about the oceans? How do you imagine the oceans? And he said, I don't really dream about the oceans. I don't imagine the oceans. Would it matter to me if there were no more billfish or sailfish or marlin or tuna? No, because the only people who see them are fishermen. And I made a film about climate skeptics, and I found the same sort of thing. And I think that people who care about the oceans because they create a mental image of it in their brain. And once they create a mental image of it in their brain, they're able to empathise with that mental image. And that, with empathy, comes action. Actually, that's my end slogan. I've kind of blown it a bit, but Ray couldn't see the fish, he couldn't understand the fish, he couldn't empathise with the fish, and therefore he knocked all of the statistics that people put out about their demise. So this is another thing I wrote today. It's quite good. For me, this is the final hurdle. This is the final hurdle of humanity. For us to, it might be a reason why the Copenhagen thing didn't go so well, that we are not able to really imagine ourselves as a global species, and therefore organise ourselves as a global species. And this is why I think that teaching children to be able to think about the myriad interactions of a planet with 9 billion people on it is absolutely crucial. If you talk about those sixth formers coming out of school and not knowing anything about 70% of the world's surface, how are they going to navigate their way through the first truly global century, which the 21st century will be, whether we like it or not? This is something that we need to teach people. We need to teach ourselves, but we also desperately need to teach our children. Yeah, it got me thinking about how do we engage kids in ocean issues. This is my son. He's just going, shark. He's obsessed by sharks and sprats that he likes to eat. Yeah, so how do we engage children in the oceans? I was thinking, or I was doing some research on the internet, found this incredible thing. Joe was talking about how we are fish and we're all sea creatures. Well, this is a human embryo. Our ancient ancestors were fish, and when an embryo develops in the womb, the eyes are on the side of the head first and foremost, and they navigate round to the front. This part here, the philtrum, is a remnant of gills. And hiccups are some sort of weird remnant of our amphibious ancestry. So I think that's pretty cool. We are fish. And also there's a kind of reverse thing, which I've kind of heard about in the past, but never seen pictures of. You get dolphins with hind legs. Occasionally, very occasionally, you find a whale or a dolphin that has a vestigial hind limb. I think that's quite cool as well. Yeah, this dolphin was caught in Japan. What happened to it? The same thing that happens to all the other dolphins that are caught in Japan. Also, think about the good news, because when I was growing up, I had there was an amazing kind of wonder about the oceans. We didn't know very much about it. We now know lots of things about it. What's fantastic? What can you teach children that's brilliant and inspiring and hopeful about the world's oceans? Well, the Census of Marine Life Survey in about 2009, I think, discovered 13,000 new species to science, which, you know, I was making the film about the destruction of the world's oceans, and they were discovering 13,000 new species. Admittedly, the majority of them are about that big, but nevertheless, it's a very impressive number. You know, and if you have 13,000 species that are new to science, what about beaked whales? This is a strap-tooth whale, and it has no teeth. It just has these two weird things. They don't understand how it feeds. No one's really seen it alive. It's 30 foot long. You know, something like that can exist in the world's oceans without us having filmed it or seen it or understand how it works. Then what else is still out there? So I think that's a really positive message for not just for children, but for everyone. Another positive thing is that lots of good things are happening. This is George Duffield, who is a producer of The End of the Line, running the Blue Marine Foundation. The Blue Marine Foundation has has doubled the area of protection in the world's oceans from 1 to 2%. So, which is, you know, I mean, in the film, I think we say 0.8% of the world's oceans are protected. 0.8%. On land it's 14% protection. There's nothing, you can fish anywhere in the world. And so George, after the end of the line, has doubled the world's protected areas, which is just fantastic. And they've got a target of 10% by 2020. So there are lots of positive, you know, actually if you talk about to children now, this is the first time that the oceans have been protected. It's just been a free-for-all, especially in the 70s when I was growing up. Yeah, so I said that in our film, 90% of the large fish are gone since 1950, and if we don't stop what we're doing, business as usual, then 90% of the fish that we now eat will have disappeared by 2048. Now there have been some updates to those papers since then, and there's a paper that says only 2/3 of all the large fish have been taken out over the last 100 years. So, you know, slightly better, but still pretty scary. And also that there's the follow-up paper to the 2048 paper, which says that, you know, if you manage it properly, and here are 25 examples of well-managed fisheries, then you can turn it around. And there are plenty of examples all over the world where people are getting it right. But what those fisheries need is that they need the support of consumers. They need people to buy sustainable fish. That's absolutely crucial. But this is the problem. This is bluefin tuna. Bluefin tuna was a species that we featured in our film. This is when I read the book, Charles's book. Made the film. I filmed these seasons. This is Mediterranean blue film, so I filmed that season. I filmed a bit of that one. Film came out then. Not that it had any impact, obviously, but this is the quota. So under pressure from environmental organisations, concerned citizens, the quota has been, and the science, obviously they have been affected by the science, the quota has been going down, but the illegal fishing, although it took a jump down in 2008, is now growing to the gap between what they allow, what actually gets traded, is the largest that it's ever been, 141%. So people are making the right moves in the right direction, but the market, the demands of the market, the demands of the population is the thing that we have to watch out for. That's it. Thank you very much indeed. My final quote was, yes, you know, what we're doing at the end of the line is our next project is an educational project. I'm just trying to work out, this talk is at the beginnings, thinking about the beginnings, the ideas that hopefully I can take into schools with Joe and you know, and really engage children and young people about the oceans, because we have to teach our children to see the world as it really is, because without vision there is no empathy, and without empathy, no action. Thank you very much indeed.